Hey guys, welcome to the Woods. All right, so I did a video this week talking about how I set up a bow for gap shooting when I'm shooting 3D. I can't remember if I said that I use a fixed crawl when I'm hunting. I don't use the gap system as I explained it, but fixed crawl, and I'll explain it better on the sheet of paper I use again. But the fixed crawl, all it really is, and you'll understand this after this, hopefully after this video, all it is about taking that gap, that arc, kind of moving it forward and creeping it forward so that you're not holding, 17 inches off the animal when you're trying to complete that shot. It takes everything, it moves everything into, for me, a 20-meter window when I'm hunting whitetail. I don't want to take a shot, and I haven't, and hopefully I never try, unless I have to do a follow-up shot perhaps. But I'm never taking that first shot outside of 20 meters. That's me, that's my personal choice. If you are doing it and you're having success, I have nothing to say. I'm always a little bit concerned about them jumping the string. So I try to keep it inside that 20 meters, and so far, so good. So this is how I do it. I use that same system for bear. It's worked really well for bear. The great thing about bear is even though they do jump a little bit, it's nowhere near what a whitetail can do. Because I hunt over a bait for bears, I know that barrel is, say anywhere between 16, 14 meters is often what we set them up at. And so I just hold 7 inches low when they're at the barrel. If their head or paw or anything is in the barrel, I count them at that, and I hold 7 inches low with my longbow at a fixed crawl, which is about 3/8 below the arrow. Bang, and it's money. So I hope you enjoyed the explanation. If you have any questions, ask. Again, I do this for my friends and my buddies here in Nova Scotia about how it is that I'm setting up my traditional gear when I'm hunting and or doing 3D. I am not a master. I have my 10 years of experience is all I have doing this, and I'm just trying to help the guys in the area or anybody else who might find this helpful, and then go someplace else. Find additional information about a fixed crawl if this interests you. Again, I've talked about the push. A buddy of mine actually watched it and reached out to me and said, holy jumpins', I watched the push and it was great. I'd agree, it's great. Fantastic video. I enjoy it. It gives the basics of everything. And then Masters of the Barebow series. Again, you can't beat these guys. They're the best in the world. And so something you should check out. All right, to the woods, guys. Thanks. All right, let's try to give this a go. So I did the video on gap shooting, and there was a lot of detail in that. What this is this is going to be fixed crawl. That's a horrible handwriting. All right, fixed crawl. Fixed crawl is what I use on my hunting bows, specifically my longbow now. But I was using a fixed crawl on a Hoyt Buffalo previous to this. So you go about the same thing. You want to do, ultimately you want to kind of know everything as far as what your max gap is and what your point on is. All right. To keep this pretty simple, we're going to go with my hunting bow being exactly the same gaps and everything that we had said my new ILF was, just to kind of keep comparisons similar in the math. They're close. My longbow is actually closer to like 27 point on with a max gap of about 20 again, at halfway between 27, which is, right, what am I trying, 13.5 meters. But that math is harder. So we're going to pretend, for the sake of it, that my longbow, the bow that we're using to hunt, is 30 meters point on with that same max gap of 20 inches at 15. So we're holding at 15 meters, we're holding the arrow 20 inches low in order for it to rise up at the top of its arc into the target, okay? So this is where things get a little bit interesting. I'm not really going to go into string walking, because string walking, ultimately in the end, there's a lot to it. And those guys who do it well, you know, using a plunger, and because as you work down the string, your draw length ends up getting shorter. You know, there's a lot of different things in the draw length. The amount your arrow travels, your draw length obviously doesn't change, but because your arrow is further up the string, it's not coming all the way back the way it normally would. So things change. But when you're setting up a fixed crawl at 27 or at 30 meters hunting, this is a shot that I never take. Okay, 25 meters, I should say, is a shot I never take. Not on talking whitetail here, on a whitetail deer. 20 meters is a shot. Anything inside 20 meters, that's working out quite well for me. That's the type of shot I'm looking for. Obviously, you know, closer the better when it comes to tread, but a 20-meter shot is very doable and something that I'm looking for. So I'm looking for a max shot at 20. So if I'm only going to be shooting it from 20 meters and in, what would be wonderful is if I could take this and kind of move it so that I've got less to consider, because I don't need to remember everything back here. It's really not all that difficult to do. At 20 meters, we were saying that I was using my zones, and I was saying I was going to be holding about 17 inches low. That's kind of the when I'm shooting 3D, 17 inches low. So 17 inches low, 1, 2, 3, 4, is actually holding quite low on the deer. So when you've got a live animal, right, you don't want to be holding that low, trying to figure out what you're trying to hit and what you're trying, you know, what your point on is. The animal's moving, breathing, you know, there's not a lot of time. You don't want to have to do that much math. The interesting thing about fixed crawl is that we can change that up a little bit. All right. So if this is, I use a double knock point. So guys, that's going to pretend that's 2 brass points, 1, 2. And my arrow knocks, right? Knocks in there, sits on the shelf. All right. String walking, in essence, is kind of, instead of picking a gap low, they work down the string so that their point on is always right on target, right? So they might, right about here, right, all the way up to the bottom knock, we're point on at 30. Then they move down a little bit, and they're point on at 25. The arrow stays in the same spot. What they're doing is they're moving down to change the launch angle of the arrow, and always holding the tip of the arrow directly on what it is they're trying to hit. All right, they move down the string the closer they're trying to get to the target, more or less. All right, and it's fractions at a time. It's not very much. It's it's like a 16th or less as they move ahead 5 meters, say, at a time. So all you have to do, interestingly enough, is figure out at 20 meters what it is or pick your distance that you want to be shooting your max shot at a live animal. So for me, it's 20 meters. You figure out whatever it is. Then start putting a knock, like a third knock, brass knock, here, moving down a 16th at a time until you're holding point on at 20. All right. For me, it works out to be about 3/8 down from the bottom knock. I put another knock right there. And then all I do is I slide up to that knock. My arrow is kind of free floating. I draw, and I'm point on at 20. So, this is what I'm going to do here. So, there we go. So what I've ended up doing, when you end up choosing your 20 meter point on, this arc is pretty much always going to be the way the arrow leaves the bow. What we're doing by moving down the string is taking this arc and changing it to work like this. Now, all of the sudden, point on, because the math is the same. The physics are the same. That arrow's traveling in the same trajectory. All we're doing is changing it by moving down the string to change the math, that we're only using the first little bit of the arc. So at 20 meters, point on, bang. You see this gap here? Because 20 meters and 10, remember we said half? We go to 10 and we shoot that same brass knock, that same fixed crawl. You're crawling down the string, but by putting a knock there, you're fixing it. It's a fixed crawl. So you're not going to have to guess every time. It's there, it's fixed. You don't have to guess when you're in the woods. All right, so I've got it set at 20 meters point on. I go to my halfway point, the same as I would when I'm trying to figure out my max gap. So I go to 10, and it's about 10 inches. Yeah, that's what it is on my bow. That's actually what it is on my hunting bow. At 10, my max gap is 10. So now, all of a sudden, anywhere between 20 meters and point on, my hold point is 10 instead of 20. There's 20 inches. There's 10 inches. Anything in between, very rarely are you going to get inside 5. Right? All the way out to 20. So if I'm holding for 7 or 8 inches, anywhere inside 20 and 5 meters, I got pretty good chance I've got a double long. That because you got a fairly significant area, right? You're trying to hit the deer. You don't want to go too high. You don't want to go too low. But you got this sort of, again, say 8 inches or so that you need to be able to hit. So if you're holding 10 and it's rising up, it hits a little high. If you're holding a little lower, you're going to come in here somewhere. Right? Tip of your arrow. That's a whole lot easier to manage when you're under stress out there with a big buck or a bear or whatever the case might be. Holding for, I usually hold, and again, I set myself up for a shot that's going to be somewhere between that sort of 14 and 20. So I'm holding for 7 inches. That's my 7-inch zone. If you want to talk zones again. So now, all of a sudden, at 20 meters, instead of holding for 17 inches low, I put my fixed crawl on, and I'm only holding 7 inches low, anywhere between 14 and 20. And I got a kill shot, double long. All right? If he closer for any reason, I have to take a breath, and I might have to stretch it out to 10, if he's closer to 10 inches. Or 10 meters away, I should say. Because that's my max gap there. But still, that's only a 3-inch window. 3 inches high, you could be in trouble. 3 inches low, yeah, you could be in trouble. But, again, that 7, if I know he's between 14 and 20, it's flattened that trajectory. Oh, it's not really flattened it. We've just tilted the trajectory. Now, if he's beyond 20, right? If he's out here all of a sudden, please understand this drops off fast and quick. You're not, when you put a fixed crawl on, the chances of you trying to figure out how high above target you got to put the tip of your arrow at 30, it becomes exponential, right? Because it drops off so fast on this side because we've tilted everything. I don't know what else to tell you there, guys. Fixed crawl, it works when you know exactly not exactly, but you know the distances you're going to be hunting in. You can kind of get rid of that 10 meters that you're not going to use. And you kind of flatten this trajectory a little bit inside that 20 meters. If you got a question about that, let me know. Talk to you guys soon. To the woods.